So the first principle is the principle of oneness. Now, this is a principle that is often overlooked, and yet it is the most important principle of all. If you want to manifest a life that is meaningful, that is fulfilling, that gives you real, true satisfaction, I cannot overstate the importance of working with this principle, because anything else that you do in the absence of this principle will fail. That's how important this principle is. You must work with this principle if you want to have real success. Ultimately, everything else finally leads to this principle. So you have an option. You could start somewhere else and eventually be led to the principle of oneness, or you could start with the principle of oneness from the outset. It will be I believe, it will give you faster, better results. So that's why I'm leading with this principle, because it's really the core, the heart of the whole thing. So the principle of oneness is really, can be summed up by the law, which is that everything is one. There is only one reality, just one reality. Now, this is something that you will understand this or not understand this presently based on your present level of consciousness. As you work with this principle, contemplating this sincerely, opening to new depths of understanding, new insights regarding this, consistently day after day, your level of consciousness will change. So please understand the importance of that. You experience life through the filter of the level of consciousness from which you are presently operating. Whatever it is that you hold in consciousness determines what you experience. It is not the other way around. Okay. A lot of times people have this misunderstanding, and they think that the external determines the internal, but that's just plain wrong. So it is what it is that you hold in consciousness that determines your experience. And so if your level of consciousness is one of division, separation, multiplicity, then you will perceive and experience from that level of consciousness. And notice that if there is separation, or if there is a perception of separation, if that's what you are holding in consciousness to be true, then what that sets up is that there is separation in your perception of reality. And therefore, you will perceive yourself to be threatened. Because if you are separate, then there is always going to be the danger of harm. There will also be a sense of lack, because if there is separation, then there is inherent in that lack. And so there will be a sense of, I am missing something, I need something. Where will that something be found? Well, clearly it will be found outside of me. So you will be out of center, you will be grasping for things, and you will fall down over and over and over and over and get hurt and disappointed, frustrated, discouraged. You'll grow angry, resentful, and ultimately cynical, because like the Aesop's fable of the fox and the grapes, the fox sees the grapes up there dangling from the vine and thinks, oh, those look delicious. And he tries to get them, but every which way he tries, he leaps this way, he leaps that way, he can't quite reach them. And so he gives up, and he determines, well, they must have been sour grapes anyway. And this is what happens to people when they're starting from the frame that there is separation. Then ultimately this will end up in cynicism, because the people will determine, well, it's just the way things are. I'm just lacking. I'm incomplete. My life is fundamentally lacking and incomplete. Life is just suffering, and there's no way around it. And of course, this is deeply unfulfilling. And so round and round it goes, because as long as there are unfulfilled desires, then you just continue to play this game. But it becomes a very painful game when you're playing the game from a place of perceived separation. So this principle of oneness is really, it is so important that if you were to work with no other principle other than just this one, this can give you everything. Just this one, if you are to work with it sincerely. So let's just take another look at it. Now, you might have heard people say things like the importance of detachment from outcome, the importance of letting go. So people will talk about that, but often they don't explain clearly how it is possible to actually practice that. And when you study the principle of oneness, when you investigate it, when you work with it sincerely on a regular basis, this will reveal to you the truth, and really ultimately the only truth, of letting go and detachment. Because there's no way that you can really, truly, all the way let go or detach so long as you perceive that you are lacking. If you perceive that you are lacking, that you are incomplete, you cannot let go. You can give lip service to it, you can do your best, but it will always be there. A sense something's missing, I need it. And so it will come back over and over again, the seeking for what it is that's missing. So the remedy for that is to actually discover that you are fundamentally already whole and complete. Because that's that, if you think about it, oneness. So if there is one, if the truth is one without a second, now you can't even really properly wrap your mind around that, because the mind is always based upon division. So there is no way for the mind to actually understand oneness. But what is possible is through the working with this principle that the mind can actually be at least momentarily absorbed back into its source. See, everything emerges from one and is only ever one. Now, again, this is impossible for the mind to really wrap itself around. However, we can use something that can point, that you can start to catch a glimpse of. Okay, so notice that when you dream at night, that dream contains a multiplicity. There is a sense of space and time in that dream, and there is a sense, usually, unless you are awake in the dream, there is a sense that you are a character in a dream, and that the world in which that dream is occurring, the dream world, is separate from you as the character. That there are other characters appearing in that dream world that are separate from you as the dream character. So the dream seems to be a multiplicity. However, upon waking, it becomes evident that there was actually only one thing happening, and that was what we could call consciousness. The entire dream itself was never actually any separation. It was a dream occurring in consciousness, which remains forever unified. The fact that a multiplicity appeared in the dream in no way separated consciousness. Another metaphor that is sometimes used for this is the metaphor of a movie. So if you were to watch a movie in a theater, and that you know that the movie is projected onto a screen, now that movie will appear as a whole world. So there will be characters, locations, activities, all kinds of things. And it appears as though there's a division taking place, because there might be multiple characters in a location in space doing things. However, at no time does that projection of the movie onto the screen divide the screen. The screen remains forever unified. It's never divided. It's only ever one. Consciousness is always one. There's never a second. When you really are willing to accept this and work with this sincerely, then you can start to discover the power of this for yourself. This is not something that you're going to really be able to intellectually fully grasp, as I've already stated, because the mind cannot grasp what is beyond the mind. This is what we're talking about, is the source of the mind. So the mind is an appearance in consciousness. It cannot grasp consciousness. Consciousness is unbounded.